Hi everyone, welcome to Infinite Women. I'm Allison, and today I wanted to talk about a few sci-fi movies that center women's relationships with other women. Sci-fi is definitely one of those genres where you have a lot of only woman media, a topic that I talked about in another video that I'll link down below. But whether it's Ripley in Alien, Sarah Connor in Terminator, Princess Leia, Jyn Erso, Amidala, and Rey in Star Wars, Trinity in The Matrix, or the lone woman in a superhero team-up like Black Widow in the Avengers, Wonder Woman in the Justice League, Gamora in Guardians of the Galaxy, or Sue Storm in the Fantastic Four, we have plenty of smart, strong badasses who also happen to be the only woman surrounded by men. And that means that you lose the connections between women and the ways that those can enrich a story. This is why I want to start with juxtaposing Mad Max Fury Road with its prequel, Furiosa. Now, Furiosa only grossed about half the box office that Fury Road did, 174.4 million compared to 380 million. That means it barely recouped its $168 million budget. Fury Road was also nominated for 10 Oscars and won 6, while Furiosa was not nominated at all. And I think what the men who wrote and directed both films maybe didn't realize was that while Fury Road was woman-centered, Furiosa was an only-woman movie that I believe barely passes the Bechdel-Wallace test. In the opening scenes, she has a female friend that we never see again, except in archive footage from Fury Road at the very end. And we also meet her mother, who is very quickly crucified horrifically in front of her young daughter. And that's it. She spends the rest of the movie surrounded by men, having gone from a paradise of women to a hell of men. But there are also women in that hell that, unlike in Fury Road, we just don't meet in Furiosa, which raises the question of why. Wouldn't a young, traumatized, but perhaps still naive Furiosa have sought out other women and girls to form bonds with in this new hellscape? Why not have her do that in an early scene, only to be betrayed, and that's how she truly learns that no one can be trusted in her new life? Or have her adoptive parent be a woman instead of a man to really drive home how radically her life has changed, going from a loving mother in paradise to an abusive psychopath in hell. I have to wonder if it just didn't occur to the writer-director team of men that women can also be monsters, because that is something that is absent across both films. There are plenty of terrifying, violent villains, but they're all men and boys. And it's ironic because Charlize Theron actually won an Oscar playing a serial killer in a movie called Monster, directed, incidentally, by a woman, Patty Jenkins. But I digress. One of the reasons that Fury Road just worked better is that while all our villains are men or boys, we do have 2 male ally characters as well, and we also have the other women working with her. This Furiosa's driving goal is not just getting back to that paradise of women that she was taken from as a child, but to bring other women with her, to save them from the hell of men. But she is also assisted by men. It's not purely black and white based on gender lines. And the other women aren't just interchangeable nameless characters, but ones who are given identities in their own right. The fact that those other women have been reduced to slaves used for sex and breeding and told that this is where their only value lies juxtaposes with the war boys, who are used as mindless, violent, disposable thugs. The girls and the boys are both just being used for their bodies, but in very different and gendered ways. So that movie also has much more interesting things to say about gender beyond what should be the baseline of just having multiple female characters. And yet the prequel barely meets that most minimum of standards. Switching to superhero movies, I really enjoyed Black Widow, Captain Marvel, and the Marvels movies. Unlike the Wonder Woman movies, which both very much centered the main character's relationships with men with fairly little attention paid to her all female home of Themyscira, the three MCU movies do, in my opinion, give us some great female relationships, whether that's the family we choose or the family that's thrust upon us. Unfortunately, Wanda doesn't get the same in the end, but talking about how the MCU did that character dirty is a whole other conversation. One of the things that I think made Black Widow more impactful is that we've always seen her at work. Even when she's with Clint's family, who see her as an aunt, that's her work friend. The only background that we're given about her is her abusive training and indoctrination. Giving her back a family that was ripped away and the complicated dynamics that we see between the different characters just made it all the more enraging that the MCU had already fridged her when this movie came out. And three of those four characters are women, when we've almost exclusively seen her interacting with men across all these different movies for a decade at this point. In Captain Marvel, Maria Rambeau is the key to unlocking Carol's identity. She and her daughter Monica are basically the only ties that Carol has left to Earth and her past life, and we see how close all three of them are, to the point that plenty of folks have asked whether there was more than friendship going on there. And we see the continuation of this in the Marvels, when Carol's cowardice in staying away because she couldn't deal with her own guilt and shame deeply hurts Monica, who had to deal with not only the consequences of the blip, but also the loss of her mother without the support of this secondary maternal figure. It's not a coincidence that when we first meet adult Monica in WandaVision, which is all about grief and loss, that is what she's dealing with, as well as Wanda. Balancing out the depth of those emotions, you also have the absolutely delightful Kamala Khan and her fangirling for Captain Marvel, only for her to have to reconcile that teen hero worship with the realities of someone who is only human. And that's sort of the through line, that for all that she's ridiculously overpowered, Carol is still human and has human failings. And that means that she lets people down, potentially on a horrific scale because of those powers. But seeing the three of them together really makes for an engaging movie, at least to me. And finally, we can't talk about women's relationships in sci-fi movies without including Everything Everywhere All at Once. One of the aspects that I find fascinating here is that originally the lead role was male, written with Jackie Chan in mind. But the final version is a woman who struggles to connect with the people that she loves and to express her care for them in healthy ways. And while her husband and father are included in this, the most important relationship in the movie is clearly the one with her daughter Joy. And we get the bonus of Joy's relationship with her girlfriend and how Joy's familial relationships are negatively impacting not just her but her girlfriend as well. And it's a really great look at this intergenerational trauma and its impact on family members and those around them. And like with Carol in the Marvels, we're shown a reality where very relatable human failings can have world-ending consequences because this is sci-fi. I will say that sci-fi shows tend to do better on this front than movies, if only because they have more time. And the only woman problem is more of an outlier than when Lieutenant Uhura and Captain Janeway were the only women on the bridge in Star Trek and Star Trek Voyager. But I don't think any sci-fi show has done female relationships better than the clone extravaganza that is Orphan Black. Not least because of just how impressive it is to have Tatiana Maslany not only play such a range of different characters, but also to have so many scenes where she is having to play opposite at least one other character that she also plays. And again, we have such a fascinating collection of dynamics because of all of these different personalities and experiences that the characters are bringing to those scenes. And that's on top of other female characters like Kira, who's the main clone's daughter, or Delphine, who's a scientist and another clone's girlfriend. But obviously, this isn't a comprehensive list, just some of my favorites. So let me know which ones you'd recommend in the comments. Join us next time on Infinite Women, and remember, well-behaved women rarely make history.